And it's necessary to the habit. So the limits on neuroplasticity, you see, there comes a moment in life when you stop searching for signs because the sign itself has already arrived, this moment, this voice. You didn't stumble here by accident. Life doesn't work that way. You've had a new habit, and so the limits on neuroplasticity, everything has led you to this exact point. Every failure, every heartbreak, every quiet night you thought you were lost, you were not late, and you were right early, you were right on time. You've been preparing for this without even realizing it. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, all the chaos, the confusion, the question, the endless mistakes, they were the training ground for your awakening. You were never supposed to have it all figured out. You were supposed to fall apart, to let go. As if necessary, the limits on neuroplasticity. So there wasn't everything that what truly you, there's only then could what to remain. Now the mind loves to whisper, you're not ready yet. It tells you to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the version of yourself. And so the limits on neuroplasticity. But there's no perfection waiting somewhere in the future. There is only you breathing alive right now. The truth is you were always ready. You just needed to remember. There's stillness underneath all your noise. And so the habits or the limits on neuroplasticity, a deep presence that has been patiently waiting for you to notice it. That's who notice you are. Not the anxious thoughts, not the fear of failure, repeating about, not the story you keep or who you think you should be. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you are the awareness that watches all of it come and go effortlessly, like clouds passing through the sky. When you begin to see this, when you stop running from yourself, something shifts. You start to understand that life is not happening to you. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, it is happening as you. The universe is not testing you, it is expressing itself through you. The energy that moves the stars, the tide, the trees, it's the same energy that beats your heart right now. And so when you hear these words, and so the habit, the limits on neuroplasticity, but not be instructions, but recognition. You don't need to force anything, any more to force anything. You don't need to chase. The seeking ends when you realize what you're looking for was never missing. You have always carried it, the wisdom, the strength, on the new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, the peace, you already know, not because you've mastered life, but because you've surrendered to it, because you've stopped waiting for the right time to begin, because something inside you finally whispers, enough waiting. This is it. For that new habit. And it says necessary the limits on neuroplasticity. This is the moment you wake up to yourself. You've been walking through life with feeling that something was missing, haven't you? That quiet pull in the back of your mind, the question that never really goes away. What am I supposed to do? It's necessary to form the habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to be? But what if the question itself is the distraction? What if the one who is asking is already what they seek? You see, we grow up believing that life is a ladder, something to climb. So the limits on neuroplasticity, something to conquer, something to reach the top of, but no one ever tells you that the ladder is leaning against a wall that doesn't exist. You keep climbing and climbing and climbing. And for that happens quickly, isn't it? So there's limits on neuroplasticity, thinking that when you reach some imaginary point, when you're successful, when you're loved, when you're whole, then you'll feel complete. Yet when you get there, you look around and realize that nothing's changed. You are still you, a new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, the same thoughts, the same hunger, the same age. And so you start to climb another ladder, another dream, another illusion, but there comes a point, a strange kind of quiet in your heart when you realize you can't keep climbing forever. You pause, and so the limits on neuroplasticity, you take a breath, and you begin to see that there was never anywhere to go. The idea of become was just a game, a beautiful dance the universe plays with itself, because you cannot become what you already are. Right now in this breath. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you are everything you were ever meant to be. The future you imagine is not waiting somewhere in time. It's blooming here in the present through your awareness, but you've been taught to look everywhere else except here. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you've been told that truth lies in books or religions or philosophies or the approval of others. Yet, all along, it was hiding in the simplest of places, the quiet between your thoughts, the stillness behind your breath. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you may think you are not ready, that you still need to heal, to grow, to learn, to forgive. And yes, maybe on the surface that's true, but deep down beneath the noise a version of you that has never been hurt, never been lost. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, never unworthy. That self is untouched by time, unshaken by fear, unmoved by doubt. That is who you are. The world will try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you that worth comes from doing, from proving, from performing. Quickly, this is necessary than a habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity will hand you roles to play, the achiever, the caretaker, the failure, and you'll wear them for a while, believing they define you. But one day, all those roles begin to fall away. You start to feel the weight of pretending. And it's necessary, the limits on neuroplasticity, and then almost by accident, you catch a glimpse of yourself without the mask, just for a moment, and that moment changes everything. Because once you've seen who you truly are, you can never fully go back. The illusion might tempt you, and so it's necessary limits on neuroplasticity, but the truth will always whisper beneath it, calling you home. That whisper grows louder when you're quiet, when you stop forcing, when you stop trying to fix yourself. The more you let go. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, the more you realize there was never anything broken in the first place. Your experience, you've had every success and every heartbreak. Was life teaching you this one thing? That the answers were never somewhere else. For you, a limit habit. And so limits on neuroplasticity, for the principle of pressure of transformation, it was the permission. It was life stretching you open, breaking your shelter, preparing you for a moment you would finally see. You were never being destroyed. You were being revealed. Form that new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, there's a saying that life gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. It doesn't even look kind of. Something unique, sometimes what you need doesn't. It looks like loss, confusionings. But in the middle of all that chaos, something ancient in you begins to awaken. Attentiveness to form, we habit, and so the limits on neuroplasticity. You realize that endings were never endings, they were beginnings disguised as grief. The fear you feel right now, that heavy uncertainty that keeps you up at night, is not the enemy, it's the threshold. Fear is the guardian of transformation. And so this is sort of limits on neuroplasticity. It only stands at the gate of something powerful, something new, something more authentic. And the moment you stop running from it, the moment you face it and simply breathe, the gate opens. You're ready now before conquered fear. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, but you have stopped letting it define you. Readiness is not letting it, it is about preparation, it is about operation, it is about recognition, it is about remembering, doesn't wait for you to be perfect, it only asks you to be present, that new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, every moment you've lived up until now has been shaping you into the vessel that could hold this truth. Every tear, every heartbreak, every laugh, all of it was carving space in you for this awareness to arrive. Look at your life. Every coincidence, for Hambus says it's on neuroplasticity. So the limits, every meeting, every path crossed that crossed you, all of it is part of a vast, invisible pattern, a rhythm. You are not separate, Pat, from it. You are that rhythm. You're the song the universe is singing right now. As is necessary to form the limits on neuroplasticity. And maybe you've forgotten the melody for a while. Maybe you've drowned it out with worries and doubts. But even then, it was still playing. You've never been outside of it, not even for a second. This message, quickly as is nes, so nebit, and so limits on neuroplasticity. You find you because as a deeper part of you core, you are hearing these words because some part of you already knows they are true. You see, everything in existence is interconnected. There are no isolated events, every emotion. You quickly as is necessary that bit, and so there's the limits on neuroplasticity. Every action ripples through the web of life, touching everything else, winching everything else. When you change, the whole universe changes with you. The smallest shift, your awareness echoes across eternity. That's how powerful you are. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, but you've been taught to see yourself as small, as insignificant, a tiny being being adrift in an infinite cosmos. In truth, the cosmos is within you. You're not looking at the stars. You are the stars experiencing themselves through human eyes. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, when you finally stop resisting what is, you enter a kind of freedom that no external success can ever give you. You begin to dance with life rather than fight it. You flow effortlessly. And so as quickly as is necessary, the limits on neuroplasticity, because you are no longer trying to control the rhythm. You're becoming the rhythm itself. That's readiness truly means, the willingness to stop arguing with the present moment. Have you ever noticed how the mind is never satisfied? And you feel happy as is. So the limits on neuroplasticity, it tells you that once you achieve something, then you can rest. Once you find love, then you'll be whole. Once you escape the situation, then you'll finally be free. But have you noticed that no matter what you achieve? And so the limits on neuroplasticity, it always creates another condition. It's a trap one. It's a trap, a mirage. You keep chasing the horizon. You keep chasing the horizon, but no matter how far you go, it keeps moving away. Freedom comes the moment you realize there's nowhere to go. You can stop running. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you can breathe, you can finally just be. The now is not a waiting room, it's the destination. You're standing in the very thing you've been searching for your entire life. You might feel ready, but I don't still make mistakes. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, I still fall. Of course you do. That's part of being human. Readiness doesn't mean perfection. It means acceptance. It means you can fall without calling yourself a failure. It means you can feel fear and still walk forward. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, it means you can love even when it hurts and trust even when it's uncertain. The world needs that version of you, the one who's not pretending anymore. Because when you begin to live from that place of truth, everything around you begins to shift. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, people feel it, life responds to it. You stop trying to control the flow, and the flow starts carrying you exactly where you're meant to go. This isn't some mystical idea. It's the simplest reality. You felt it before. This is necessary to form that new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, in those rare moments when everything just clicks, when you're not thinking, not planning, not striving, just moving effortlessly as if something greater is guiding you. That's not luck, that's alignment. That alignment is always available. And so the click is necessary. Limits on neuroplasticity, it's your natural state, but it'll live there. You must let go of the constant need to know how everything will unfold. Mind, but crave, but life is not a puzzle to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. And the more you try to control it, new habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, the more you suffer. Real peace comes from surrender, not as participate, but as patient. When you stop demanding that life fit your idea of how it should be, you discover it's already perfect as it is. You may not see it now, as is necessary to, so the limits on neuroplasticity, but everything happening, even the things that seem unfair, painful, or meaningless, are part of a divine choreography. You are being shaped, refined, awakened. Sometimes that process is gentle, sometimes it's like fire, but both are sacred. And so please is necessary to ham. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, both are love and disguise. Love isn't always soft. Sometimes it breaks you open so that something deeper can emerge. You thought life was punishing you, but it was only preparing you. You thought it was taking everything away. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, but it was clearing space for what was always meant to be yours. Peace, freedom, truth. Every time you let go, something more real takes its place. Every time you surrender, new strength arises. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you're not becoming less. You are becoming transparent to what you've always been. There's a moment in everyone's journey when the question changes. Sort of the new habit, and so the limits on neuroplasticity, it shifts from what do I need to do to what do I need to stop doing. You stop striving, stop pretending, stop hiding. You begin to live from a deeper center, a space that doesn't need validation or permission. But as is necessary. So neuroplasticity, that's the moment you realize you're no longer waiting for a way for life itself. You don't need to try to become the light. It's just been covered with stories, expectations, fears. Habit. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, but even those are part of the dance, nothing has been wasted. Every experience brought you closer to this recognition. You are not broken, you're blooming. You're not lost, you're unfolding. You're not behind, you're being guided. And so the limits on neuroplasticity. And this this message, this timing is the universe's way of saying you're ready now, not ready to do something extraordinary, but ready to simply be what you already are, extraordinary without effort. The seeking can rest. And so that's the limits on neuroplasticity. The striving can fall away. What remains is you infinite, aware, alive. And as you breathe it right now, notice, nothing is missing. The past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, and yet complete. You are whole. Entirely enough. Stay with that. And so lives as necessary, form it for neuroplasticity, and it's let it wash through you. Every cell in your body knows this truth, echoes it. You have not been waiting for life. Life has been waiting for you to see it. So if you take nothing else from this moment. So look at limits on neuroplasticity. Let it be this. Stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect version of yours, the perfect plan. That waiting is the only thing standing between you and the life that's already yours. The door has never been locked, as is necessary to form neurohabit. And so the limits on nerve, you're always holding the key. Every breath is an invitation to begin again, not tomorrow, not Tonday, but now. Because now is all there ever is, and you are all you ever need to be. The universe didn't make a mistake when it placed you here. And so the limits on neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity, it chose this moment, this version of you for a reason. So walk forward, speak your truth, love without holding back, trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be, not preparing for your life, living it fully. And so the limits on neuroplasticity, you are ready now, not to become something more, but to find and remember what you've always been, limitless, eternal, and beautifully alive.